Well, hello Fear Porn merchants, this is from CollectiveEvolution.com. NASA happily reports the Earth is greener, with more trees than 20 years ago, thanks to China and India. The facts: thanks to China and India, human-induced greening has increased by 5% across the Earth. Reflect on why are we only getting the bad news stories about the climate all the time. Is it politically convenient? Does it fit narratives? Is it always true? Are we only being told one side? Are we meant to remain in fear? Amidst the climate alarmism that is sometimes misplaced, there are stories that paint a different picture, like the study published in the American Meteorological Society Journal of Climate, showing that climate models exaggerate global warming from CO2 emissions by as much as 45%. Or the study in the journal Nature Geoscience that found that climate models were faulty. As one of the authors puts it, we haven't seen that rapid acceleration in warming after 2000 that we see in the models. How about the findings from the University of Alabama Huntsville showing that the Earth's atmosphere appears to be less sensitive changing CO2 levels than previously assumed? Or the fact that polar bear populations are increasing. According to data collected by the federal government, polar bears along the entire west coast of Baffin Island are stable. On the southeastern side of the island around the Nunavut capital of Iqaluit, polar bears have even experienced a likely increase. It's only on the island's northeastern frontier in a management area that meets Greenland that polar bears are suspected to be on the decline. And here the topic of our article: our world is literally a greener place than it was 20 years ago, according to data from NASA satellites. The cause of the greenery: human-induced activity in China and India. My point in all I wrote was that what we hear in the media is typically only one side of the picture, and it does not give us an accurate representation of what's going on. For years now, we've been locked on environmental issues from a grounded perspective here at CE. Looking at the data, looking beyond the politics and simply at what's happening. This approach shows you things are troubling in certain areas like pollution, air quality, EMF exposure and so forth. But the number one climate story we always hear about, CO2 warming the atmosphere, simply does not hold water from the perspectives of many scientists, and it hasn't for the last 10 years. I recall a conversation I had with Greg Braden, where we were discussing research about the climate and what the data is truly showing. Amidst all the CO2 alarmism, I asked Greg, it appears to me that it's more likely that we're headed into global cooling than a warming period. He responded with, that's precisely what the data shows, and it appears humanity is suffering from amnesia when it comes to cycles of climate. The bottom line is, the majority don't know the truth, and the news is actually a lot better than we're being told. The challenge is it's more beneficial for power structures and businesses to keep us in fear. Study: the greening is human-induced. NASA study will come as a surprise to many, as we have not been told a balanced perspective on what's going on with our climate for some time. To reiterate, yes, there are challenges we need to address, mainly pollutions of water, land, air, and the issues of animal agriculture. But the countries with the world's biggest populations, China and India, are leading the improvement for greening Earth's land. In 2017 alone, India broke its own world record for the most trees planted after volunteers gathered together to plant 66 million saplings in just 12 hours. This is how fast change can happen. In the mid-1990s, satellite data began to paint a greener picture. leading to the question as to whether or not human activity was actually helping to green the planet. After 20 years of data collection from NASA instrument orbiting the Earth on 2 satellites called the Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectroradiometer, MODIS, we know that Earth's green coverage has increased by 5% over the last 2 decades. This works out to an extra 2 million square miles. China and India account for 1/3 of the greening, but contain only 9% of the planet's land area covered in vegetation, a surprising finding considering the general notion of land degradation in populous countries from overexploitation. And here's the graph showing the greening, China and India, and then the EU and Canada behind it in 3rd and 4th place. MODIS has captured as many as 4 shots of every place on Earth every day for the last 20 years. This long-term data lets us dig deeper, said Rama Nimani, a research scientist at NASA's Ames Research Center and a co-author of the new work. When the greening of the Earth was first observed, we thought it was due to a warmer, wetter climate and fertilization from the added carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, leading to more leaf growth in northern forests, for instance. Now with the MODIS data that lets us understand the phenomena at really small scales, we see that humans are also contributing. Although all of the planting in China and India does not entirely make up for the damage we're seeing through clear cutting in Brazil and Indonesia, a good message still emerges here. When we recognise there is an issue, we tend to do something about it. Once peoples realise there is a problem, they tend to fix it. In the 70s and 80s in India and China, the situation around vegetation loss wasn't good. In the 90s, people realised it, and today things have improved. Humans are incredibly resilient. That's what we see in the satellite data. The takeaway: yes, we are still clear-cutting in ways we should be reflecting on, but this is happening due to a state of global consciousness that puts profits first. From this state of consciousness, we also give power to the government, put responsibility on others, blindly trust government, and don't see ourselves as part of the global community. When the reference above points to not being totally out of the weeds yet, this is in reference to the belief that CO2 is having a detrimental warming effect, which, as we discussed, remains unfounded. Remaining in a balanced, heart-centered state of being, we are better equipped to navigate information from a non-emotional state. When we get caught up in alarmism and panic, we tend not to see things clearly. The CE protocol that we have been sharing for a while now was designed to help people not only navigate information, but shift their perspective and consciousness such that we can change the world and take action from a new state of consciousness instead of the old. And that's from collectiveevolution.com, and I'll leave a link. Thanks for watching.